Welcome, everybody. As Kim said, my name is Derek Piazza, and I'm one of the two instructors in the Apparel Design and Merchandising program. The other one is the department chair, Mr. Roundtree, OJ Roundtree. And the two of us teach the classes that you would take for our program, for our fashion program. I guess the first thing that I like to tell people is we love our program. We absolutely love our program. It's such a pleasure for us to take the skills that we have learned in working in the fashion industry, as well as teaching at other colleges in the fashion program, their fashion programs, and bring them to our students and make them as successful as possible. It's such a pleasure to be able to do that. And the program, in one form or another, has actually been around since 1965. It used to be at Laney, and then it moved over and it was called something else. And we still have one of our graduates from 1968, Claire Schaefer. She is one of the top lecturers and writers in the sewing aspect of fashion design, and she has one of the largest couture collections in Southern California. And I had the pleasure of actually working with her a few summers back and going down to Palm Springs. So what are we doing today? What will I be doing today? Well, give you a good intro to the program, definitely leave room for Q&A. I want to give you a tour of my studio, which is my classroom. We'll do a quick tour of that. I want to talk to you about where our graduates are working, what are they doing, all of the jobs, just like Rochelle Olive was talking about. Fashion design, like business, to say that you're in fashion design is not enough because there's so many niche markets in fashion design, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Where our graduates are, as I said already, go over the program class by class, answer your questions there, give you the information that you need. And then I'm also going to be doing a drape, which is essentially taking a two-dimensional piece of fabric, and I'm going to be draping it on a dress form, and I'll be draping a dress right before your eyes. And you'll be able to see that process come to life for you and just get an idea of what it is that we do here. A little bit about myself to start. I've been in the fashion industry for over 30 years, and I love it. I still love it. It's actually the only industry that I've ever been in. There was no plan B for me. And I have my bachelor's degree from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. And right out of the gate, I started getting internships and working part-time while I was going to school to gain additional experience. And I loved fashion school so much. I loved it. I didn't want it to end, to be honest with you. And so much so that I actually halted the process of getting my degree. I stopped my classes, and I actually took one suitcase and flew to London, England, where I wanted to work in the fashion industry over there. And that's exactly what I did. I worked for a company called No Logo on Marylebone and High Street, if you are familiar with London at all. And worked there for just about a year, came back, finished up my degree, all the while working in the industry, and came out to San Francisco. I consider myself a designer, fashion designer, as well as a pattern maker. Most people will separate their love of what they want to do in the fashion industry to either the more creative side or the more technical side, depending on what they feel comfortable with and what their personality is like. And I couldn't do that only because I love both of them immensely. And so with that, I worked extra hard in getting my bachelor's degree in fashion design. I have a minor in art as well. And right out the gate, I started working as both a designer and pattern maker. They speak to each other. And it ended up being quite a benefit, not only for my own personality and my own joy of what I do, it helps greatly as a teacher. I'm able to connect dots much more precisely from one class, which may be more technically involved, to another class, which may be more creatively involved. I'm able to weave, if you will, a tighter bond between those classes. And that's one of the beautiful things about our program that I personally love. And I've worked at locally, I've worked at Academy of Art University. I've worked in their bachelor's program, as well as their master's program. I've taught those, as well as their online programs. I've worked at Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, FIDM, and also City College of San Francisco. And what I love about our program is it's a one-stop shop. It allows students in a 2-year program where you can get a certificate or an Associate of Arts degree. And if you have a bachelor's degree already, those classes will immediately transfer over, or most likely transfer over, and you can get your AA degree. What I love about our program, it is a one-stop shop. We teach industry standards for students, fashion students, to be able to enter the fashion industry and get entry-level jobs and feel very, very comfortable and confident about what it is that they'll be surrounded by in the fashion industry. The terminology, the techniques, the standards, the language. We pride ourselves on being able to have students walk out the door and we feel confident that they will be confident as they pursue internships and entry-level work as well. And that's what we love about our program. I'd love to talk about and show you, I'm going to share my screen. Actually, let me give you a tour of my studio here. Let's do that, and we'll get back to what graduates are doing. So again, my colleague, OJ Roundtree, who's the department chair, he has another setup, as you can imagine. This is my design studio, and I'm going to flip my camera, and I'm not going to go too fast because I don't want to make anybody dizzy, but this is my design studio. One thing I've done is created studio lighting. I inserted studio lighting so that everything in here would be bright and crisp and clear. I'm working with 2 screens, which helps me navigate while I'm teaching live. I have a camera set up here with additional lighting so that when I'm actually doing a live demonstration, I'm sketching, I'm the sketching teacher. I'll tell you what I teach in just a second. I'm able to just slide over, switch cameras, and get an incredibly close-up image of what it is that I'm doing for students to see. This is an additional camera that you're actually going to see me use in just a second. This is actually a 50 times magnification. I think it's even greater than that. That helps us look at fabrics and swatches underneath, essentially, the microscope. And you get a bird's eye view of what that looks like. Coming over here, I have all my books on my shelf, ready to go. If anything needs to be addressed here, my giant scissors, which are not real, as you can imagine, just for fun there. This is my industrial sewing machine. And this is what I do all my demonstrations on. You can see there's another tripod here. This is the second of four tripods that I actually have. And this is a great machine. Students have their own machine at home. This one I fell in love with back in, I think it was 1994 that I actually bought this. And this is still with me and I absolutely love it. I'm going to turn around here. And this is where you see the pattern table where people can see me work on patterns. This is the third of four tripods that allows students to watch me do everything, including press and rearrange fabric or a garment that we're sewing up, or even making patterns, as I was saying. And it's a nice big table, and I've got lots of storage underneath for everything ready to go for demonstrations, including my art supplies, because I'm also the sketching teacher. I think I mentioned that. All of this over here, ready to go, and a miniature dress form as well. And there's a nice big fashion illustration to help us work it out. So I'll swing back around here and you can see where I'm going. I'm gonna flip it around now. And this is where I am. So just giving you a little tour of what that's like. Because the question that most people have, I think, is how do you teach fashion design from home? How is that even possible? Well, I get a lot of support from my colleague, who's the department chair, OJ Roundtree. I get a lot of support from our dean, Eva Jennings, just amazing support from the college in general, which have allowed me to have such a great setup so that I can bring quality information to you all. So I'd love to share my screen here and do a designer spotlight. This is 1992 Adam graduate, Stella Caracazzi. And Stella is so great for the Bay Area fashion industry. She graduated in 1992, as you can see, earned her AA degree, and she started her own company straight away. And it emerged, or it evolved into Stella Caracazzi, her eponymous brand that is of her name. She's the creative director and the co-founder of that brand. I'm gonna stop my video here. And a little bit of Stella. She's got her flagship store in Berkeley. And I'll just read a little bit about what she is about, saying that she's passionate about creating a positive fashion experience for the many women who feel left out of the fashion conversation. She's been in business for over 30 years. It's quite remarkable what she's done. And as you can see here, that being creative director, which is essentially fashion designer, is one of the routes that you can, one of the many routes that you can take with your certificate and or your degree, your AA degree from our program. And let's take a look here. I'm going to look at one more student. We've got a few that we're going to just spotlight here. This is Molly Nicola. Molly graduated back in 2013. And Molly is now an assistant designer at Levi Strauss & Company. And I still talk to her. And what's great about our former graduates is that they're appreciative. We're so humbled by how appreciative they are by what they learned and didn't have to go into debt for learning it, and everything that it gave them to give them the strength to go into the fashion industry and be successful. And what they do a lot of times is they come back for what's called Adam Industry Talks. And they come back and talk to our current fashion students, first and second year fashion students, and they talk about how they got to where they are. And it's such a great experience that now we do it on Zoom. When we're on site, they come in, but now we do it on Zoom, and we do it about once or twice a semester. And they basically get to share what has happened to them since graduation, and where they are now, and then what a typical day looks like for them, and what the skills are that they need, that they learned in school, that they still use at the job. And then we always have a Q&A as well. And we'll have a Q&A together here. So most people will graduate, and if they go into the more creative realm, they will move into assistant designer and build up to designer if they so choose. Next one we have here, and by the way, I'm going to go back to Stella. All of these graduates are also on what's called the ADAM Advisory Board. They're all members, which means that I'm in contact with them, and we talk about the ever-changing fashion industry and what's happening, so that we can continue to keep our program up to date and current with industry standards. So another ADAM Advisory Board member, 1997 ADAM graduate, is Tina Ragazzino. And she works now as Senior Technical Designer for Women's at Athleta. And she has had a wonderful experience in order to get to this point. And I believe she started with an internship at the San Francisco Opera, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, and I think that's what I wrote right here. She is an accomplished and skilled technical designer whose love of fashion design began when she interned as a milliner, which is hat making, by the way, in the San Francisco Opera costume shop. And then she worked her way up. Last one here that I want to spotlight is a more recent graduate as well, 2006, and I think she earned more a little bit after that. ADAM graduate Jessica Ricchetti. She is now in Vancouver as the senior design manager for men's for Lululemon, and she's also on the ADAM Advisory Board as well. And as you can see here, she stayed in the Bay Area for quite a long time, working for, oops, let me zoom in here, working for a lot of local companies, including the North Face, Mountain Hardwear, Triple Lot Design, etc. And just working her way up, which is really exciting. We're so proud of all of these graduates and now ADAM Advisory Board members. So what I'd like to do is give you an overview of our entire program and speak briefly about that. We got some fun coming up. My job's not done today. I'm going to be, again, doing a demonstration so you can see what we do. You can see a piece of two-dimensional fabric come to life on a three-dimensional dress form right before your eyes. So our program is 2 years, and that's 4 semesters. And the first semester here, these are the classes that you would take. And usually the first year, semester 1, those are all the first level. And then many of them are repeated, but they are in first year, semester 2. They're the same class, but a more advanced version of that. So an example of pattern drafting, we have where we're actually making patterns on paper. And so what that is basically working from a 2-dimensional paper pattern to a 3-dimensional form or garment. It's working in that direction. Pattern draping is what you're going to see is actually starting with 3 dimensions and moving into the 3 dimensions being the actual dress form, and 2-dimensional, it ends up as being a pattern. So it's the same idea, we're just moving in different directions. Apparel construction, this class is what I teach, and it's industry standards for essentially learning how to assemble garments. And there's 2 levels of that, and we do some really cool sewing projects. We sew up a short, we sew up a bomber jacket. Your final project is actually a bomber jacket that is going to be really close to actually fitting you. So we give sizes for that one. Everything else is sample size. Then we move into design and sketching, where it's exactly that. We learn about designing in the fashion industry, and we learn about how to sketch for the fashion industry. And that's essentially creating blueprints, which are called flats, which help factories and contractors move your garment into production and onto the stores, into the stores. So apparel history is another class that I teach on Fridays, and we start all the way back, as far back as the Lascaux cave paintings in Lascaux, France, and all the way to modern times, learning about each one of these time periods. And all the while, you as the student would be drawing inspiration from these time periods and infusing your own style into them. And so you'll be sketching and illustrating all at the same time, not just learning information, but putting it right into practice. And the first year, semester 2, same classes, second level, except apparel textiles. And that's one that I teach as well. And we go deep into a lot of fabrics and a lot of the industry standards to help you understand, again, how textiles are seen and used in the fashion industry. Moving through here, the second year consists of 2 semesters again, only 3 classes this time. And I teach 2 of them. So I teach production pattern and size grading. And what that class is going even deeper into industry standards for pattern making, industry standards for sewing as well. And what we also learn is how to take a sample size pattern and what's called grade it, make it larger and make it smaller. And that's what we learn how to do. That's called size grading. So that when you go to the store, you're actually able to find the size that you want. Portfolio development is, I'm going to backtrack for production pattern and size grading. We also learn in the final semester, you learn 2, one definitely a CAD system, which is called Gerber, where we're going to actually draft patterns on the computer. And we also are in the process of being gaining the actual software and license for what's called Clo 3D. My students are being trained on that as we speak. Clo 3D allows one to actually build patterns and fit patterns and garments on an avatar. And it's really exciting. And that's the future, as you can imagine, with everyone's situation right now and not wanting to be so close. These 3-dimensional programs like Clo 3D are incredibly important, necessary, and they're going to give our students the skills to move out and be confident when they go for a job or an internship. Portfolio development 1 is exactly that. Students are going to design their own portfolio, their own collection. And with that, they'll be learning, I teach Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe Illustrator. Those are 2 programs that are pretty standard in the fashion industry. The final class is one taught by my colleague, Mr. Roundtree. And this is the class where you actually create a collection of your own, and you make your own patterns for it, and you actually sew it up and then present it. And these classes are really the culmination of everything people have learned in our program for the first and second year. It all comes to that. We also have a sheet that I'm more than happy to get to you. It's a breakdown of what our program actually costs. And we pride ourselves on the fact that our 2-year program, you're really going to end up paying just about $4,000 for the entire program. Now that excludes relatively inexpensive tuition and college fees, but for getting a program, we pride ourselves on the knowledge that students are not going into debt and they're getting a high quality education that allows them to move forward into the world. Last one I want to show you, and then we can do some Q&A, is where our students are located. Let's see, here we go. So if you've seen our website on the College of Alameda website, you can see, let's see if I can zoom up here a little bit. I believe I should be able to. There we go. All of our ADAM industry members, and so many of them are actually former graduates. And so we can see the variety of jobs that are actually available to students that are all getting the same quality education. They branch out in different areas that best suit their skill level, interest, and personality. So we have someone who's graduated from our program who is a designer and owner of an international company. Veronica Smith owns Design Veronique, which is compression garments right here in Richmond, California. And she's hired many of our students in the past. Ann Schmidt is a technical designer. It's a modern term for essentially a pattern maker. We have a former student who is a corset maker, which is Autumn Adam. She works in San Francisco and her other store is in New Orleans. Kim Surani, Adam graduate, he has his own company called High End Uniform, which actually is a niche market where he's actually creating garments for restaurant workers. And he's been doing that for over 20 years. It's quite remarkable and exciting to see how his business has grown. More technical designers. We have Brian Glick, who is a product development manager. So a lot of our students go into managerial roles as well. He's working for Mountain Hardware. Trish Lee, who's a bridal wear designer and owner. Remy Ramirez is new in the program. She knew because we were talking to each other near her graduation. I recall this. She didn't want to be a pattern maker. She didn't want to go in the technical side. She didn't want to be a designer. What she wanted to do was go into more of the editing side of it. And yet, in order to being a fashion editor, and in order to do that, she needed to understand construction techniques, how garments are made, how people in the fashion industry look at garments. And now she's executive fashion editor of Title Magazine in Austin, Texas, which is really exciting. Product developers, designer, technical innovation research. This is two of our students, graduates, work for not only Levi Strauss, but also for their research and development. They are neither designers or pattern makers in the classic sense. They take fabrications and they actually try to create fabrics in order to satisfy the design intention of whomever designer they're working with. So, and there's even people that are in, there's even people that are in alterations as well, tailoring, the list goes on and on. Costume designers who work for the Douglas Fair, I believe it's Douglas Fairbanks in Hayward. We have a graduate that works as the costume designer for the shows there. So we're proud of our students and we're so excited. And the excitement continues, even being online with what people are doing. So I'd love to, before I do my own drape here, I'd love to do a Q&A and talk to you all and see what's out there. Let's see what's in the chat. Oh, here we go. Lots in the chat here. Let's see. Okay, thanks for posting those, Kim. Can you talk about a bit about getting an AA degree and what that means for fitting in the ADAM classes with the general ed classes? Very good. Who sent that? Sharon? Oh, Sharon. Hi, Sharon. I've been emailing Sharon. Hi, glad you're here. So essentially, it's a 2-year program, as you saw, and earning your certificate is going to take 2 years. And actually, it's less than 2 years, just less than 2 years is how it ends up being. And so when students get their AA degree, the first thing I ask them, and this is maybe 5 out of 10 people say I have it, if the student already has obtained their bachelor's degree or higher, so many, if not all of those classes will automatically transfer and satisfy for someone going for their certificate. It will immediately bump them up to an AA degree. So those that, the other percentage that do not have their bachelor's degree or higher, which I did not when I was in school, what I recommend and what ADAM counselor Maha Iledi recommends as well is to take a lot of the general ed classes either over the break, over the semester break, in the interim between semesters, and over the summer break as well. Many students do that, and over the course of the 2 years, they're able to satisfy the requirements, the specific requirements for your AA degree. Some people do that and they're out in 2 years and maybe 2 years in a semester. Sometimes it takes people a bit longer. And that's the other beauty about the program, is that people are busy and everyone's unique experience of their own lives demands something different from our program. And what I mean by that is not everyone is able to take every class and more. They're just not able to do that. So we've had students that have been in the program and it's taken them 3 years. Most go 2 years, 2 years in a semester, 3 years. Some go 4, some go 5. We've had students that have actually gone 8 years because literally they wanted it, but they were not able to move along with getting all the classes at the same time. So they took it at their own pace and it worked out beautifully. We're still there clapping for them at graduation. So I hope that answers your question there. It's really up to you. Questions from Mitzi, thanks. What has been the most significant change in your teaching? Question 2, what are 3 impacts to the fashion industry and the new context of today? Yeah. And the third one, comments and feelings about fast fashion. Oh, really great questions here. So what has been the most significant change in your teaching? Well, I'm going to back up here. You're looking at it. This is like, it was such a significant change. And I know you had to make significant changes, and everybody on the screen here had to, do a complete left-hand turn 180 to figure out last March what is going on here. So this is really just the venue of where I teach has been significantly different. I've taught online my entire life, but to the degree that it has to be taught successfully in the Adam program, I had to step it up and give a higher production value. And I believe I've achieved that. I'm pretty happy about it, what's coming out. Question 2, what are 3 impacts to the fashion industry in the new context of today? Well, one of them, great question there. One of them is what I was talking about earlier, which is programs that are 3D focused, CAD programs, CAD meaning computer aided design, that are 3D focused, so that you are able to, one is able to actually, as I said, fit a garment on an avatar. And these programs that we have here, Clo 3D, we're in the process of getting that now, allows you to actually make corrections to the garment while it's on an avatar and not have to be in the presence of anyone physically. What are some other changes, impacts to the fashion industry in the new context of today? I would just say screen time and how we communicate with each other. The way that I teach is the same in one context, but in another way, because we're doing it in this venue and I can't just be live and point something out, I've had to, and this not only goes for teaching, but this goes for the fashion industry and everyone working from home. I've had to rework how information is being translated to someone on the other side of the screen. And I used to work for Levi Strauss myself for 2 years, and many of my friends still work for the company, and they say the same thing, that the way that they have to express an idea or present information is a bit different than what it was earlier. Yeah. I know you asked me for 3, but I'm going to move on to your next question. Comments and feelings about fast fashion. Well, fast fashion is, I'm not going to give you my comments and feelings. I try to avoid my own opinion about things because I don't ever really think that that matters. What matters is what's actually happening in the fashion industry. So what's happening in the fashion industry is consumers such as yourself, who's asking a very insightful question, are seeing the impact of fast fashion. Wonderful companies like Zara, H&M, etc. They are the fast fashion leaders, and there's so much what's called dead stock because of this. They are meeting trends and just creating so much product that doesn't get purchased. So one of the changes that's happening is that consumers are aware of this, they don't like it, and they're looking for companies who are attaching themselves to cause marketing, which is basically marketing for a cause. They're looking for companies that are maybe their cause marketing is direct to consumer, meaning they're not creating an inventory, an excess inventory, and then hope to sell it. They're receiving orders directly from the consumer and finding ways to actually manufacture that on the spot, which reduces a lot of waste, as you can imagine there. So a lot of people are not, we're going into what's called slow fashion. That's what people are doing. So slow fashion is buying higher quality products, fewer of them, and garments that are considered special and not just trendy for the moment, that they're going to be for the long haul. I attend a lot of lectures of people that talk about sustainability, and we actually had Rebecca Burgess from the internationally known but locally located Fiber Shed, and she and other people come in, and the first thing that they say to everyone is slow down, slow down. This is going too fast. Look at what's happening. Look at the waste that's being created and how it's affecting our oceans. We have to slow down, which means purchasing less. That's the one thing that they say is buy fewer products. So next question here from Mitzi again, and I got to get to my drape here. I got to crank that out. A few of my seniors, I assume high school, are completing a project on fast fashion. Oh, okay, very good, very good. Question from Aaron. Love that spelling of Aaron, by the way. I've actually never seen that, and I have several family members that are named Aaron, and love that with the Y in there. How did you know you wanted to pursue fashion? You know, I knew I've been doing it since I was 17, and I was told, and this is my belief, you have to find something that you are interested in and passionate about. And from the get-go, I loved looking at fashion magazines. I loved opening them up. It created this world for me that I hadn't seen before. It wasn't in the people around me in Detroit, Michigan. And I wanted to be a part of that world. And I trusted it. And by trusting it and doing what I love, the money came. The money just came. Did it come in the beginning? No, it doesn't for most people in any industry. But because I loved it, and I wasn't just working for a paycheck, even though you have to do that. I have to do that sometimes, you know, that's got to pay the bills. Overall, I kept my eye on the prize and always chose jobs to the best of my ability that were connected to my heart and my soul and what interested me. And that's the reason I can sit here with you right now and say, this is not boring to me. This is still as exciting as it was when I was 17. And I attributed that for staying true to myself, you know, and I had to work in jobs that I didn't really like, but I knew I was still in the right industry. I think you get what I'm saying there. And I think that was the last question. Yeah, good questions, everybody. All right, so I got about 15 minutes to make a dress. How's that for what's called a design calendar deadline? You'll learn about that. That's in the fashion industry, and everybody in the creative realm and the technical realm, everyone who's in that part of it is following the design calendar deadline. So what I want to do really quickly is show you what I'm going to be draping with, which is called muslin. So this is the camera that you guys saw before. This is muslin. It's a plain woven fabrication, relatively inexpensive. You can still see it's cotton most of the time. You can still see the cotton seeds in it. You can see little flecks of brown. And so what this camera will allow us to do is zoom in even closer. So I'm going to keep zooming in and focusing. There's a little closer, and we're not even halfway there yet. Let's keep going closer. And we can see it's a plain woven fabric. The yarns are over, under, and we're going to get even closer. And I'm going to zoom, or I'm going to focus, and you can see how this fabric is under like 50 times magnification here. And the weave of this particular fabric, again, called muslin. I'm going to go back to, if you could spotlight me once again. Perfect, because I have to see myself. I'm looking at myself in live and also through the screen so that you guys can see what's going on. So this is a previous drape that I did for a class. One of our textiles class. I'm just going to remove this. This is just polyester taffeta. The fabric name is taffeta. And I'm just going to remove some pins and move rather quickly here. So you can see this all coming to life. There's a pin up here. There we go. And there's one back here. Okay. And the way it goes. Perfect. Can even move closer. Love it. So I'm going to take what you just saw under the microscope, magnification, I should say, not technically a microscope. And this is a drape called a sculptured dress. And it starts with a really large piece of fabric. And so what I'm going to do is just drape it over. And remember, this process is called draping. And we're going from a three-dimensional form, working from 3 dimensions, to what will ultimately be a 2-dimensional flat pattern. So with all this here, I'm just going to pin it up here just to support it. And I can come even closer here so you can see some details. Let me move my pins over. Here we go. A lot of draping is tactile. It's with your hands. It's about feeling and feeling the dress form underneath. Feeling the dress form underneath. And all the while molding and sculpting your fabric on the dress form. And that's the beauty about draping. Grab a little more fabric here. So this is the first pleat that I'm going to create from what's called the center front here. And I'll put a pin there. And you can see that it will disappear by the time it gets to the side seam. I'm going to create another pleat. This looks messy right now, but that's the fun of all this. You will see this come to life right before your eyes. You'll see this have shape as I sculpt and mold it around the dress form. And here's another pleat that I'm actually just creating, going to the side seam. You can already see what's happening. I'm going to do a third one. In design, one of the principles that we learn straight out the gate is odd numbers are more interesting than even numbers. When you can actually see a small amount, how much time do I have here? Oh, I'm doing okay. When I can see a small amount of objects, and in this case, just pleats, I'm able to, if I do it in odd numbers, if I create 3 as opposed to 4, or 5 as opposed to 4, the human eye wants to make everything kind of symmetrical, wants to make it even numbered, so it kind of understands it. So when we put it in an odd number, it just adds a little more interest to whomever's looking at it. And that goes for even how many buttons run down the front of a jacket as well. So the fabric just starts to get smooth over. Like so. coming up here, working my way up. I'll be able to smooth all this out when I'm all done, but for now I'm just getting the general shape of what's happening, and I'm pushing the fabric in this direction all the way up to the shoulder. I'm going to lower my dress form so I can have access to this upper portion a little more conveniently. And all of this fullness that is needed, all of this extra fabric that's needed to actually shape the body or sculpt the body or mold the body, it's being rotated and converted into pleats. Grabbing my pins. And now I'm going to lift up again so I can have this at eye level. And here's all that fullness that it takes. And I'm going to start making some pleats here to shape it around the bust as well. This is a really common traditional dress. It's called the sculpture dress. And it never goes out of style. It changes, it evolves, but for the most part, the style itself is set in stone. And how designers tend want to translate it each season, that's fine. They do it the way they want to do it, but it's generally the same dress. So right here, how are we doing on time? 5 minutes, pretty good. Okay, so what I can do now, and this is where your illustration skills come into play. You grab your pencil and I'm able to actually just draw on the dress form. And I'm going to draw my neckline, whatever shape I want for this neckline. I'm going to do more of an off the shoulder. So basically I'm just carving this out, and we'll give it what's called a deep V or a plunging neckline, something more evening wear, like so. I'm going to grab some scissors, come from behind, and come from over here as well. I'm going to raise this up so it's more comfortable. And this is me building a pattern directly on the dress form. Coming up and over, there we go. So this part can actually go away. So right there, we start to have this. And we can start to see, there's a little bit there's some wrinkles here. You get that. I can always come in from the side here and start to smooth this out a little bit by cutting into it. And some of that might relax a little bit. Almost done here. Thank you for your patience with this. And some of this can be smoothed out and distributed. There we go. And what's great about draping is when you're draping, you'll be left with pieces of fabric that are, maybe you didn't want them, but what's great, what I teach students is you're able to use what's there and it can actually become something else, you know? It can actually become another part of the garment and create something that you weren't expecting, especially since you're kind of improvising there. So, and we have a nice flounce in the front here. So there we are. There's our sculpture dress, 1128. I'm happy. That looks cool. Any last minute questions or comments? Anything come up?
Is that
Sure.
can students get materials from schools for doing design?
Say the question one more time, Kim.
It says, can students get materials from school for doing design?
Most of the materials, including fabric and supplies, will be purchased on their own. We give them a supply list and we tell students exactly where they can actually purchase them. And so that's what they'll do.
There is a comment from Mitzi saying that was amazing. You make it look easy.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's really fun. It takes a lot of work, but nonetheless, here I am kind of fussing with it right now. But you get the idea of it. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it and just got an idea of what goes on in our program.
I have a question. So if someone was doing this, would this be the almost final product? Is this what people see, or is this under the dress?
No, this would be what people would see on the outside. This is what they'd see on the outside. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yep. And that's what it is. Just you have an idea, and then your idea, how do we bring that to life in the real world? How do we make that happen? And that's what we teach you guys. Here's a little off the shoulder sleeve there. I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, with a nice flounce. All right, I think that's it. I went over. Kim, anything else I need to do, or else I'm just gonna sign out?
No, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I loved seeing it. I think everyone really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you everyone for your time, and appreciate your attention. And I think Vince and Miguel are here, and they're going to take you through a really cool tour of the Fab Lab, which our program actually, we're all connected, and it's pretty cool. Thanks.